Thank you, Danielle, and thank you everyone for having me today and coming to this presentation. Again, I'm with the Michigan Gaming Control Board. We're an agency within the state of Michigan. So along with, the lottery is another agency that's also in the state of Michigan, and we work with Department of Health and Human Services. And of course, we regulate the casinos and online gaming, and I'm going to tell you all about that and give you a chance to ask any questions at the end. So thanks again for having me. This is just um, our mission here, and the Michigan Gaming Control Board shall oh, I'm so sorry. I got to move the screen here. I don't know if you guys can, do you just see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. The gaming board shall ensure the conduct of fair and honest gaming to protect the interests of the citizens of the state of Michigan. So before we get going, I want to point out that, so we're a neutral party. We regulate the casinos. So we are not for or against gambling. We're not here to say don't gamble at all, or also, yes, get out there and gamble. It's just if you're going to remain responsible. That we do have 5 individuals in our section. There's the names right there, and I'm number 2 on there, the specialist. So let's get going. So a little bit about the board again. We are with the state of Michigan. The board is actually composed of 5 members. The executive director is appointed by the governor, and we are governed by many laws. So the acts I have written up there. And it's interesting that 3 of those were just only recently, just over 2 years, 3 years ago, when the governor approved internet gaming. Then we also added in, so we had the Gaming Control and Revenue Act is for regulating the casinos. The Bingo Act, we regulate charitable gaming poker parties. So those do need to be licensed, and we regulate those. Horse racing, which the track is just closed, but to be continued on that one. And then now more recently, the next 3 up there in the upper right, the Lawful Internet Gaming Act, Lawful Sports Betting Act, and Fantasy Contest Protection Act. So those were enacted very recently. And of course, I'm sure you're all well aware of how internet gaming is going in the state, and we'll get into that. The gaming board also licenses and provides regulation on all of their in-person activities, as well as the on-gaming. And we also audit the tribal gaming casinos. We do for compliance, but we do not regulate the physical properties. But we do regulate their online gaming. It's very interesting that the tribes had to waive their sovereign immunity in order to participate in online gambling. And that's one of the first times it's really happened in the history of the tribes in Michigan. And the gaming board also, of course, does investigations. We look into a lot of patron disputes and violations of the Gaming Act, and we investigate illegal gambling activity throughout the states. So it's a bit about what we do. And then where I work is a responsible gaming section. This is actually a new section that our newer executive director has developed, and I'm very proud of that because he's made it a big priority to put responsible gaming in the forefront, and especially with internet gaming going live. And we're just inundated with calls that people need help, and this is becoming a problem. And what resources do we have? So now we have a 5-person section dedicated to that. And we work directly with Department of Health and Human Services and the other state agencies to ensure that constituents get the information they need to help with any problems they have. So a little bit about what we do. We have voluntary exclusion programs. We do work with the Attorney General's office on a diversion program. I'll talk a little bit about that later. That's where if somebody has a violation of an exclusion program and they get charged with trespassing, they may be offered counseling sessions in lieu of criminal conviction. There we have community resources, outreach events. We're trying to get out in the community because before, if you think about it, we just had the casinos around Detroit, and now with internet gaming, it's all over the state. So we don't have that information spread out in northern Michigan and the UP. So we're trying to get out to events or webinars like this to let folks know about the resources available and speaking engagements. And then more recently, our Don't Regret the Bet campaign. Let's start off with responsible gaming. Well, what is this? This is a newer term that we're hearing a lot lately. It is in the it's written many times in the laws that we're working with, the Lawful Internet Gaming Act and Lawful Sports Betting Act. Responsible gaming is written in there many times, whereas with the Gaming Act for the casinos, it wasn't in there one time. Um, so what it is it occurs in a regulated environment where the potential for harm associated with gaming is minimized and people make informed decisions about their participation in gaming. So and it's really a combined effort. And I have that in the next bullet where it's not just on the individual to be careful and be responsible. It's really also on the gaming industry to make sure they're doing everything they can to protect players, the community, making sure there's resources available, or they're not just promoting gambling. They also have resources, and also the government and playing our part. Some examples of responsible gaming along all those avenues, whether it's the individual, the gaming industry, community. So something would be to set limits on gambling activity. An individual can do that right now on all of the gambling apps. So BetMGM, FanDuel, DraftKings. The law does require that they have the option to limit their time, have a dollar limit, maybe set your dollar limit at $5 even, a week. And that's it. And it wouldn't allow you to gamble anymore. And you can set those in directly in the app you're working with. And you can set time limits, dollar limits, cooling off periods. And also you can directly on the app, you can exclude yourself. So you can say, oh my gosh, this is too much. And I want to just stop doing this for 5 years. You can select 1 year, 5 year, or lifetime on those apps. So that's an example of a responsible gaming tool there on the apps. Another one, like in the casino, an example of that could be just the casinos cutting off players if they're intoxicated. They shouldn't be playing. That's not, and it's not responsible for the casino to continue to allow that. So they should cut them off from that. More examples, protecting your personal and financial data. I did want to point out, and it skips down another bullet or two, keeping online gaming accounts secure to prevent children from using them. We're finding out more about whether it's parents sharing their information purposely with their children or maybe they have a teenage son that, hey, you know more about sports than I do. Why don't you, go in here and make some bets? And it's incredible what families may be doing out there, and also just keeping your information safe from allowing children to access it and create an account with your information would be an example of responsible gaming. And understanding the signs of problem gaming and that there are exclusion programs out there. So if you see yourself are feeling, if you go through one of the quizzes that we'll mention and you see that, you know what, I am kind of getting up there. I think I should, look into this a little more. So realizing what some of the signs of problem gambling and reaching out for help. And then what happens when it does become a problem? We have problem gambling. It significantly interferes with personal, professional, and financial lives. That's when you know it is a significant problem. And it wasn't until 1980 that pathological and problem gambling was first introduced as a mental disorder. But then just over 10 years ago, the DSM-5 had finally classified it as a gambling disorder. Classifying gambling disorder as an addiction disorder. So it is the only behavioral addiction in there currently, I believe. So along with substance use addiction, then the behavioral addiction as gambling disorder is in there now. And this, of course, most frequently co-occurring with other mental health and substance use disorders. And a big one I want to point out here is this next one, that gambling has the highest suicide rate of all addictions. That's a hard one to read. And then DHHS is the one that does manage the problem gambling helpline. I'll talk a little bit. We just had a very new change to the problem gambling helpline and the number that it is, but it goes to the same source, and all the Department of Health and Human Services contracts out to counselors that are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to handle that hotline. And that's a great resource for folks needing help right away, any time of day. And there's on the side, there's some examples of problem gambling, and I'll talk about more of the resources that have those. Um, Vulnerable populations, just a little bit about ones that stick out to us or that we're seeing a trend, trends that are notable. Older adults. So if you think about, I think about the community center next to my house, and they do have a bus that goes there, and they'll take them to the casinos and take them back. So there is an increase in that, and it's really hard to see because older adults are usually retired, so of course they have limited finances, and so when they lose, it's really hard for them to earn the money back. And also military members and veterans, they are at greater risk than the general public for developing problem gambling. And I'm a veteran, and I was in the Air Force, and I was overseas, and there were, now remembering now that I work for the gaming board, there was a room with um, slot machines in it. And I never really went in it. It always seemed like, man, it's always the same people in there. I didn't think about it. And they don't have resources. Maybe they do now. But I know at that time there was never talked about that, oh, if you're having problems here, you can go talk to the these people, and you can get help this way. It was, I feel like the stigma with the military even more so is that, oh, you're tough, you don't need to reach out for help. So I can see that being a rising area as well. And then minorities, of course, and lower income, they have more to gain with a big win. So sometimes we'll hear that people come in for an exclusion program. They said, you know what, I don't gamble that often, but when I do, I'm like, I lose everything because I don't have any money, and I need to earn money, and I know sometimes it's a good way to earn money fast. And of course, maybe they had a good win here or there, but in the end, you're gonna lose. And then adolescence is on the rise. And sports betting is so interesting to hear the stats about sports betting, internet sports betting now, because so many of those folks don't consider it gambling because they know this, because they know the game, and they think it's about how much they know about whatever sport it is, and that they can win the system that way. But it still is gambling. We see a lot of individuals coming in for exclusion program that are just sports betting as well. So it's the fastest growing group of sports gamblers is between 21 and 24. So very, very young college kids. This is a new slide, so I didn't really get it too prepared because we just announced, well, in February 8th, that we removed the statewide problem gambling phone number, and now it's across the nation as 1-800-GAMBLER. But when somebody dials that number here in Michigan, it's gonna automatically go to the same place that the previous number went to. And it's going to be handled by the Department of Health and Human Services, as I mentioned before. But this is a really easy number to remember, 1-800-GAMBLER. And no matter where you are, in what state, you can always call that number, and then it will go to that local state's counseling services for that. So I'm excited to see that. So our materials do need to be updated with that still. That's a brand new update. They also have a text and an online chat available. So I'm going to talk about our exclusion programs because I find that a lot of services out there and counselors that are working directly with clients aren't aware of this, and then it just gives them another thing to share with a client that's struggling, that there are exclusion programs out there. So and these images up here are all the entities that we regulate. Some of their names have changed. Some of those little boxes are the internet gaming entities, and some of them have changed their names, but there's a lot of them. So there's 15 legal online operators in Michigan, and they are allowed to have internet gaming and sports betting. And some of them have a separate site for both. So now that could be, really it could be up to 30 different apps if it wanted to. Some of the online operators, I believe, have one app for both internet gaming and internet sports betting, but essentially it could be almost 30 apps. That's a lot at someone's fingertips. Even if they stop playing on one app, they can always start another one. And then the casinos are there at the top: Motor City, Hollywood Casino at Greektown, and MGM Grand Detroit. So there's an exclusion program for all of them. And just to give you a summary at first, the voluntary self-exclusion programs. The first one is called Disassociated Persons List, and that's for I know that's a mouthful, that name, but that's what it is in the law. That's what it's written in the law. We call it the self-exclusion program for the casinos. And that's where you could exclude from Greektown, Motor City, and MGM Grand Detroit. And then the responsible gaming database is the name that they have in the law for excluding from internet gaming. And that's for the online gaming and online sports betting sites. I'll go into them both. The first one, Disassociated Persons List. Here's some facts about that. So you do have to come in person for this appointment, and I'll share why. I know it seems like a hassle. Boy, I just want to be excluded. I want to try to do this program. Why do I got to come in? Well, you have to come in because the consequence for violating this program is that you'd be charged with criminal trespassing if you're found on the property. That's huge, and that's punishable by imprisonment of not more than a year and a fine of not more than $1,000 or both. And your winnings are also confiscated. So when somebody voluntarily commits to this program, they come in person, they're on camera, and they agree to all the terms and conditions. And we make sure they thoroughly understand what they're signing on for and that they cannot step foot on the gaming floor. The casinos do not stop these individuals. It's up to the individual to stay out of the casino. And it doesn't count for the tribal casinos. The physical properties are sovereign nations, so the tribal casinos do not count for this program. And it is a lifetime program. So it's a really big commitment. When people hear that, whoa, I don't know about that yet, because you're committing to a voluntary program to be arrested for something you're not sure you're going to do. But over 6,000 people have been on the list, have come into the office and added their name to the list. Currently, there's only, maybe about 4,500 that are on the list. And that's because in the last bullet, after 5 years of being on the list, the applicant is eligible to apply for removal. Now, that's a newer addition to the law that the governor approved a couple of years ago to, because a lifetime program, I believe is for some, it could be a barrier, and they didn't want to commit to that. So it's harder for them to come in for this program. But knowing that maybe after 5 years, if they're in a better place for it now, maybe they want to come off. So now that option is there. But if they don't come in for a removal and fill out that application, then their name does stay on that for life in the program.
Sarah, there's a
Yes.
question in the chat. Is that the same thing as, quote, signing yourself out? They've heard that from clients.
Absolutely. That's a good question. Yes. And, it is tricky because you can hear it so many ways. You can hear signing out of the casino. You can hear, I want to ban myself from the casino. I want to exclude, or I did exclude, and sometimes exclusion actually can mean other things. I don't want to get into that, but sometimes a casino themselves kicks someone out or excludes because maybe they were caught cheating or something like that. But a voluntary self-exclusion, signing themselves out, or banning from the casino, this would be the program that they're talking about. Sorry, I don't have the chat up. So does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, anytime. So I mentioned about it is completely confidential. So if somebody calls up here and asks, when did I get on the list? Because I think I want to remove myself. We wouldn't be giving that information over the phone. Just like if somebody's on the list and they do a background check at work, they would not be able to find this. It's confidential unless they violated the terms and went into the casino and were charged with criminal trespassing. Now, then, of course, that's on their criminal record. Some people are often offered an opportunity for diversion through the Attorney General's office if it's their first violation. I gotta keep an eye on the time. If it's their first violation, the Attorney General often offers diversion, which then they can work with a counselor, and they have to complete 12 sessions in 6 months and talk about problem gambling and work on ways to better handle being on the list. And then their charge is set aside. So that's a good option for those that, especially it's their first time. Maybe they didn't even gamble, because in this program, you just can't step foot on the gaming floor. You could be in there chatting with a friend or took a long way around to go to a concert or something like that. And that's still a violation, even if you're not gambling. It's a big, big commitment. So we let them know all about that. I'll show like this is an image of these are coworker or these are staff members, but that's what it looks like. You're in a room on camera and you're going over the whole application. It takes about a half an hour, and we really make sure they understand everything. Some people they realize what a big commitment it is, and we don't there's no pressure, and we make sure they completely understand. And if they're hesitant, then we'll say, why don't you come back and take your time and think about it. And also nobody else can pressure someone to get on the list. They have to want to do it themselves. We go through a lot of questions to make sure that that's why they're there, because we've heard it all before. Oh, my wife's making me do this, or she's going to kick me out, or something like that. And no, you have to be here for yourself. You have to attest to that and answer to that, and we need to believe you that that's why you're here. Because otherwise, you might be that person that does just go in there and violate, and that's not really helping anybody out. So we make sure that they are in there for their own reasons and not for someone else. So in the appointment, it's about a half hour video recorded. We talk about the whole application. We do take their picture, and everything is sent to the casinos that day. So they are banned. If they complete that whole process in that appointment, then they are banned, excluded, signed out of the casinos then. And they're given counseling information and responsible gaming literature. Here's some statistics, not super updated, but it gives you an idea. I wanted to point out in that first one. So the orange, it's showing how many people are on the list. So just over 4,000. And then you see the difference between the green and the blue. That's split up between male and female. So it's a bit more males, of course, that come in, but there's still plenty of females that are coming in to exclude themselves. So that's total on the left. And then in the right, it's showing the last 2 years, so 2003 and 2022. So last year there were 187 that came in to sign themselves out, and the year before was 214 individuals came to sign themselves out of the casino and onto the exclusion list. And then this is some information about the removal process. So they are eligible to remove their name after 5 years. It's an application they complete. It takes some processing time, so it's not immediate. And if somebody does remove their name, they once they're approved, they can go back to the casino without being charged with trespassing. The casino could still kick them out if they choose to do that, but typically they'll let them, as long as they're removed officially from the list, and then they would not then they would let them in there and not call the police for trespassing. But if the individual finds, oh, I'm going back to the casino and it still is a problem, then they call us back to get back on the list, which we've had lots of people do that now. So down there at the bottom, over 87, so there's much more than that, maybe 95 now have come to our office to say, I want to come back on the list. I removed my name and now I want to come back on the list. And you have to do the same process all over again. You have to come in person, sit there for a half hour and go over the whole application and make sure they understand and see if there's any other resources we can help them out with. Because if they're coming here again a second time, we really want to make sure that they're trying something else as well and offering, whether it's Gamblers Anonymous, connecting with a counselor, in other avenues, and taking that literature with them so they can keep an eye on ways that may strike problem gambling. And then that's how many people have removed their name on that side there. Total of 1,178. Next, we're going to talk about online gambling exclusion, or signing yourself out from online gambling, or excluding from online gambling, banning yourself from online gambling. And that process is called responsible gaming database. This is where an individual, if they're in the database, they're prohibited, the online operator prohibits them from making any wagers on their sites. So essentially it's closing your account. I mean, you may be able to log in, but you would not be able to gamble once your name is in this database. You wouldn't be able to make a wager. And if you didn't open, remember how I said there was 15 online operators and some of them have 2 sites for internet gaming and one for sports betting. If you didn't create an account with one of those and you were in this database, you wouldn't be allowed to if you tried to while you were in the database. So that's the full exclusion for that. It is an application. You do not have to come in for an appointment for this one, but it does need to be notarized. We are making sure that the individual who's filling it out is truly that person. You would be surprised how many people want to fill this out for somebody else. But again, it is a voluntary self-exclusion. You can't fill this out for someone else. It has to be the individual filling it out. So it does need to be notarized. And then 1 year, 5-year option. And this one, you are automatically removed from this when the timeline expires. It's, of course, confidential program. And there's well over, that was a smaller number too. There's well over 750, maybe 800 now probably that are on in the responsible gaming database and more. We get applications every day for this. And just to summarize at the end of this 2 programs, the DPL is a disassociated persons list. That one is where you're excluding from in-person gambling, and you do need to make an in-person appointment, and you do have a criminal trespassing charge if you go into the casino, and that one is for life with the 5-year being able to remove your name after you sign some documents. And then the RGD is the responsible gaming database. That was again excluding from online gaming. You can fill out an application and submit it. You don't have to come in. And there is no criminal consequence because it is online. And then there is some time for application processing. So it's not immediate, but you will be notified when you're in the database. And you can select 1 year or 5 years for that.
Sarah, can you remind us how the casinos identify people who are on the exclusion list?
Well, we do take their picture when they are in the appointment, and we get all their identifiable information. And a big thing is their driver's license. So now when the casinos have their information, they have all of that information. I believe they have a binder, and of course they have it digitally. The security guards have access to this information, and they're going to be looking for those folks. But that's a lot of people. You're not, constantly looking for that. But the biggest way that they find them is if they win any money, especially a certain amount of money, they have to go up. I don't know the current amount where you have to go up with your ID and at the cash cage to collect your winnings, but that's when they run their card. That's when they find out that, oh, you're on the excluded list. Well, they'll just say, oh, hold on a moment. And that's when they're calling the state police to come and process that individual for trespassing. Other ways are they try to get a player's card. If they try to get a room, they might then, or if even scanning their license plate as they come in to park, they could then be following them. Like, oh, an individual from the DPL is here. Let's, they can see them on camera. And then if they step foot on the property, then they're going to call the state police.
And, and could a non-Michigan resident enter themselves onto the list?
Yes, yes, they can. We just collect the same information as we would if they were in Michigan. It would just, the information that the casino staff would have is that they are, another resident. We would still have a copy of their driver's license information, and it would just state that state. And we get a lot from Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. That's the big ones. But of course, we still get some all the way. I think the other day we just had someone from Texas. If he's a truck driver, and comes up here a lot. So, and wants to, and he said he's been looking at programs all along the way and making sure that he's signing out of all of them.
And does it apply to the Michigan lottery games as well?
So Michigan Lottery is their own agency. So that's a separate agency, and they do have programs. Now it's a little tricky you can't really, I mean, I don't work for lottery. I'm not going to speak for them too much, but I don't think they could put a program like that if you're buying lottery in so many different, if you're buying like scratch offs or things like that in so many different areas. They're not able to, that's just not really feasible to stop someone that have that requirement on all of the party store or stores that sell lottery. I do know that they have an exclusion program for online lottery. Yes, and it's very active.
Do you mentioned folks from other states can sign up for the list? Do other states have similar programs, like a similar list for the casinos in their state?
Yes, they do. They do. And of course, every state is different based on what the legislator has created in the law for them to follow. So there's very few that have a lifetime program. So we are one of those strict programs. But now with the 5-year removal, it does loosen that a little bit. But yes, there are states. I definitely know about Ohio's and Pennsylvania. Ohio is very similar that you get a trespassing charge. Some don't have a trespassing charge. It's just, oh, we're going to kick you out. So yes, most of them do have some form of an exclusion program. And even the tribal casinos, I believe some of them have a, a similar program. I don't know the details, but maybe it's just a kick out thing, but it's definitely worth a shot if you find somebody is going to a casino that's a tribal casino. It's not the specific programs that I'm telling you, but it's worth a shot for them to call the casino and see and use that term. Do you have an exclusion program for me? Can you help me out? I want to stay out. And most of them, I believe, have a program available as well.
For the in-person application meeting, what if folks have like a time or transportation issue getting to the Lansing office?
We have two options for the in-person application. Most of them come to Detroit because they are the Detroit casinos is where you're banning yourself from in the physical casino, the disassociated persons list. So most come to our Detroit office, and then we have the Lansing office available as well, and some people go there. We don't offer specific transportation options, but we'll talk to them and see just as we could, a friend, like how can we help you out? What kind of resources? Let me Google some things for you. But we don't provide that directly. Transportation. That'd be great though. Anything else before I go into the next one? This is good.
I think I got them all, but folks, if I miss something, please let me know in the chat and we'll pause again in a little bit and take some more questions.
Yeah, thank you. So we talked about the exclusion programs. I just want to talk a little bit about the outreach program that we're doing and the campaign Don't Regret the Bet. It's just been wonderful. We've been working with a big media company called King Media out of Lansing, and they've taken our information and ran with it and made a really good campaign for us. And and I'll show you on the next slide some of the billboards that we have and commercials and all that. And we've won some awards now too. So it's pretty excited about that. We just love the and that's more on it's the responsible gaming campaign. So yes, there are links to the exclusion programs, but a bunch of it is just about, hey, is let's keep your gambling in check. And if you are choosing to gamble, here's ways, to remain responsible. And also if here are signs of problem gambling. So I can show you that website in a moment. And then the gaming board has a website. All of our forums are on this website. And we do presentations of partnerships. And our executive director, he just finished a whole year of doing podcasts. I think he's going to continue it, but it's pretty great. He's got this podcast called Double Down Michigan. Our section was interviewed on there once too. And he has an interview with Responsible Gaming and Lottery. Her name's Keisha. She was in a session there, and he has a session with someone through horse racing, through someone from the casino. So it's a lot of interesting um, um, individuals that he is interviewing on that podcast. And then there's a gift responsibly campaign through the holidays. Lottery is a a big agency that does that campaign because we're not promoting lottery tickets for gifts. And now internet gaming, there can be gift cards for that too. And so not promoting that as a way, especially to give to underage kids. And March, I know you just mentioned March did you say Social Workers Month? What is March for you guys?
Yes, correct.
Yes. Well, it is also Problem Gambling Awareness Month. So we're just kicking that off here soon, and there's a lot of activities going on with that. Here's examples of our ads. I'm not sure if anyone has seen any of these. Hopefully some of you. There's the gas station ads on the upper left and the right. There's commercials. I know mostly we're airing a lot of those. I've seen them in between some of the news channels and also, of course, during sports games. And then the billboards at the bottom, and then bottom right is some social media advertisements we have out there. All right. I'm gonna try this and I'll see if it works. This is one of the commercials, and I'm sorry if the sound doesn't come through. It does on my end, but I can send this out after if you're interested in watching this commercial. But I'm gonna play it and give it a try.
Gambling ads are getting pretty hard to ignore. Gamble, make sure you play it safe. For tips that will help, go to don'tregretthebet.org. A message from the Michigan Gaming Control Board.
All right, I'm not sure if anyone could hear that.
It cut in and out for me. I don't
Oh,
know for other folks. But we can certainly send the link later.
all right. We had this other one, then if it's not working, I'll just skip this. We have another commercial as well. Oh, this is examples of our website. I don't think I necessarily need to go through this one. It just shows the areas of the website. And if you go to Michigan Gaming Control Board website, you go to click on responsible gaming, and then you can see our forms there. And you can also read about the two different exclusion programs. And then there's a good FAQ there about the exclusion programs. So if you were directing someone there, of course, they can always call me or anyone in my section, but there's some information here. If it's after hours, they can get some information. And then I believe let me see. This is a problem gambling. I'm sorry. Don'tregretthebet.org. This is the new campaign website. And as you can see, the fun colors, it's a little bit more, it's just nice to look at. So there are tip cards here to keep gambling fun. Think of gambling as entertainment, not as a side job. So it's surprising how many people think about it as just a way to make quick money. But yeah. And then there's this truth or myth cards. Gambling can be a lot of fun. Good way to make money. Hmm. And here's a quiz. So this is an interactive quiz you can go through. There are 10 questions, and it will tell you whether you may be at risk of problem gambling and the resources that will help. So those are all available on the website. Also, you can go to the MGCB website, and our resources that I'll show you in a minute, those are all available there as well. And these self-exclusion forms. These are some examples of the literature we have available, and I'd be happy to get this to you in digital or in our printed materials. We can send you packets, or again, I could send you the digital copies as well, or you can get them on our website. There's also a link on our website to request the information directly on the website as well, or to request if you want a speaker for your local community organization or your church, or maybe there's a farmer's market that has vendor tables there. We'd be happy to come anywhere and everywhere to share this information. And here's a little bit about reporting illegal or suspicious gambling activity. So tips are a critical source of information about illegal and suspicious activity. So we need to hear that from the public out there. We do have an anonymous tip line. There's a phone number there, and they can also do it by email, which is not anonymous. And that's information there. And that is all. I'd love to take questions, and I just wanted to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And one last thing I would like to say is gambling in any form is for entertainment purposes only. And so when it's not fun anymore, that's when someone needs to reach out for help, and we hope they do. And um, I'd love to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mhm.
All right, so I'm gonna scroll through the chat. Your colleague has also been answering some questions in the chat as well, which is really helpful.
Ooh.
Um,
Is
what
it
would in
Sandra?
yes, yes.
That's my manager.
Um, we have one question says, what would an illegal gambling site look like or sound like in person or online?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know all of the lottery sites, but I do know that the Michigan Gaming Control Board licensed and legal entities and online operators are all, there's a list of them on our website, on our homepage. And I mean, if I'm still sharing, I could show you that. So if they're not on the list, they very well could be an illegal site, and there are so many of them. Um, I wish I had a good answer for the look and feel, because man, a lot of these, you wouldn't know. You really wouldn't know. And they could still say licensed by the Michigan Gaming Board, but it doesn't mean they are. So if someone wanted to know if it was legal or not, here's the licensed internet gaming provider. So you could Google Michigan Gaming Control Board, or
We can still only see the PowerPoint.
oh shoot. Okay, because I'm presenting. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Uh, maybe I have to. I used to just working on my laptop here. How about now?
So try
Oh,
sharing again and then selecting the different window.
you got it.
All right, now we can see the Michigan Gaming Control website.
Okay, good. All right, so this is michigan.gov/MGCB, or you could just Google Michigan Gaming Control Board. This is the home page. So you would just scroll down. I mean, there's probably a couple ways. You just scroll down. Here's the forms of gaming. So this is the casinos. And then the second one, licensed internet gaming providers. It comes in a download. Oh boy. Can you still see the screen of the
Yep,
download?
we
All
can see
right.
the Excel sheet. Yes.
All right. That's the list of all the legal online operators. So the first one's DraftKings, and then we have this one's for Firekeepers, and it has the name of the online app. ESPN Bet, Bet Parks, WinBet, Bet Rivers, BetMGM, FanDuel. So if whatever you're looking at is not on this list, then it very well could be illegal gambling site. That's what's hard, is how would a regular consumer know? So we would like to know about that, and you could always report that, because somebody is not protected on those sites at all. There's no regulatory compliance, or they could just take your money and run. Or who knows if they're actually using random number generators, or for their virtual slot machines and things like that, which all those are tested through the board when their internet sites go live. Everything is reviewed and looked through. So this is a list of all the online operators. And then I know, so lottery has online lottery, and that should have their information all over it, Michigan Lottery, to indicate that. But they could also scam that one too. I'm sure that the lottery has the same thing on their site. Like, these are all the legal lottery site, out there, and it's probably the Michigan. I don't know. It shouldn't. I don't know if it's .gov, Michigan Lottery. I'm sorry. I shouldn't talk too much about lottery. I don't work there. I don't know. But you'd want to check into those too to make sure that it is a safe and online licensed site.
Are the resources available in other languages?
Yes, we have some of our literature is available in 4 different languages. Let me show you which ones those are. 5, I'm sorry. Go to resources. And I can, of course, get those to you digitally or hard copy. So these are the ones right here, this Gamble Responsibly rat card and think you might be gambling too much, that rat card. They're available in Arabic, Mandarin, Spanish, and Vietnamese. Each of those. So it'll have English on one side and then the translated language on the other side.
Are there resources, accessible resources for folks with disability, like hearing impairment?
For like on our site or when they come in person, we would, if they come in person, we would reach out to see, what services we can provide them. But we don't have anything specific on the site. I do know that I believe that that's what the agency is working on right now, is revamping the access. Write that
For
down.
hearing and visual?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just scrolling through. There's a ton of really great questions. So, how does the online exclusion program prevent people from creating different accounts or identities?
So when I'm sure there's always a way, people are so intelligent in tech, but an online operator has to verify someone's account. They're required, per the law, with so many ways to verify someone's identity, multiple ways, whether it's all like their name, their social, their phone number, all these multiple ways. And so somebody has to have all that information in order to create an account. And if that's the account that someone excluded with, because we collect all that information too, and that is provided to the internet operator, and they have to close their account. So if that same person, uses somebody else's information, I mean, that's illegal. They're already doing illegal activity. There isn't anything to stop creating someone else's, all their information. But if any of that information matches one that's already locked out or excluded, then it's not gonna work to create a new account. But gosh, just like internet, stolen identities and all that is so hard to see. I know I have a personal issue that had happened to me, a while back, and it's hard to work through that. People are getting so intelligent here, but there are protections in place that they're required to have internal controls with the online operators, and they're reviewed. Some are reviewed weekly, monthly, and annually regarding their internal controls to prevent stuff like that from happening.
Could a legal guardian put someone on the exclusion list?
That's not always a straight answer. I know there has been a case where if the individual can come in and still is not incapacitated, that they can still make decisions on their own in person. There's been a recent decision from the Attorney General. So we would reach out to the Attorney General in a case-by-case basis for that. But typically, no, because it is a voluntary self-exclusion program. So that individual has to commit to it, themselves. The questions that are on that application per the law are based on an individual answering them about themselves. But there are, especially for internet gaming too, we're reaching out on a case-by-case basis with the Attorney General's office on those. So I can't have a straight answer on that one. I'm sorry.
Well, that's helpful. Um, some of the stats were really alarming that you shared at the beginning of the presentation, specifically this about the highest suicide rate of all addictions. Um, Deborah was wondering if there's a screening process for those who have mental health issues or suicide attempts, etc.
To screen for gambling or to screen
Mhm.
for
It says, is there a screening process for those who have mental health issues?
yeah, so I'm, we're not we're not counselors. We would refer all that to the Department of Health and Human Services, who they have their standard practice and their screening process for problem gambling and gambling addiction. And the assessments that we have different ones that are, this one's a long-winded one. So this wouldn't necessarily be, your everyday screening process. But this one's got 20 different questions. There is a smaller one that is good for general screening, where this one has 7 questions. So it's getting an idea. But when it comes down the road of getting into the clinical side, I would refer to DHHS for that.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, are casinos fined in any way if they don't comply with referencing the lists or
Yes.
okay.
Yes, no, that's a very good question because why have it out there if nobody's going to get in trouble? But yes, but one thing that's we have to make clear to the individual about the list is that the casino is in the law. They are not required to stop someone from entering that is on the list. And I get it. They have so many people coming in and out, in and out. It'd be really difficult for them to stop everyone. And now it's intrusive, like scan everybody's IDs. But it's important to know so that's not something that they are going to get in trouble for, is that if they walked on the property. But if they did knowingly let someone gamble and they won money and then brought it to the cash cage, and that cash and the attendant behind there gave them money, all of that information, because they have to collect their name and they have to collect their, because it turns into a tax side, they're going to have to file taxes on those earnings. So they do collect their information. And if that passes that initial screening person that's supposed to check for if they're on the list, if it goes on, then that would be a violation. Online gaming, if somebody is able to get through, and we've had reports of that early on. I don't know if we're getting any now, but early on when this was first rolled out, there would somebody should have not been allowed to gamble on a site because they were in the responsible gaming database, and they reported back to us that in fact they were able to gamble. So then yes, it goes through an investigation. The investigation department looks through and makes sure it was in fact everything was handled correctly on our side. And if they were in violation, then yes, that's what would happen is they need to change. So a few things would happen. It just all depends on what it is that their violation is. They could be fined. They could have to show proof of all of their changing of their process and the update to their internal controls and a bunch of other things. But yes, that's typically the route it goes, is they are fined.
Is there any movement towards limiting televised ads for gambling similar to cigarettes?
I am not aware of any real movement. I know that is a huge hot button for everyone. We get calls on that all the time, and I completely understand. I don't believe there is. I'm sure maybe because it's all up in the lawmakers' hands and legislation, and I'm not aware of any right now, or that maybe there is, but it's not really getting anywhere. And it's a hot item, hot ticket. What a That's not what I mean to say, but yes, it's something that should be looked at, but I don't see it going anywhere right now. And it's not in the law right now that's limited.
You mentioned that all these assessments and the cards and everything are on the gaming control website and everyone has access to those. What about some of the research and stats that you referenced at the beginning and how gambling can intersect with poverty and other factors? Are those stats and resources available on the website as well?
I got all that information from the National Association of Problem Gambling. Let me bring up their website. Council, sorry. Yeah, so the NCPG, so that's the National Council. So I've gotten the information from there. This is good that they have the new 1-800. So they're the big proponent in getting that going, the 1-800 Gambler for all the states. And I think during because this is March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month, things might be moved around, but this is where I got the information. Boy, that would just be in like resources.
It's helpful to know all the places to get good information.
Yeah, instead of going to all of them individually, this is the reason they, pull it all together here. They have a good advocacy toolkit, but uh, yeah, they have full treatment manuals, but I'm sure it was in here. And this, where it talks into what is problem gambling. All the information's pulled from here.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we have all the attachments that I sent out to everyone earlier, and I can resend them. And Sarah will also provide me with the links to the videos. And she also agreed to let us put a recording of the presentation on our YouTube channel. So I'll get that up in the next week or so folks can reference or look back if they need to. And Sarah, can you remind folks how they request any hard copy materials for their agency or organization?
Absolutely. Well, you can contact me directly. I'd be happy to help you. My email is RYES. So my last name is Rye and first initial S at michigan.gov. And my phone number is 313-456-2377. You can also contact our responsible gaming section helpline. That phone number to reach myself, my manager, as well as 3 other analysts. You can call 888-223-3044, and we can get that out to you. Also, you could request it on our website as well. I know I'm giving you all the different ways to do it, but under responsible gaming, you have a contact us, submit questions or speaker requests. You could just do it here if you wanted. You don't have to put all this info. Obviously, you'd have to do your email, but you could just request info there. I don't think it's under the resources. We're always updating stuff here. No, it's not specifically in here, but yep, reach out. I can get some in the mail, or I can send you direct links if you wanted it your own way instead of doing it yourself, the PDFs. I'd be happy to do it.